good evening. Welcome to MURCIR Wednesday Talks. As you know, we have a series of talks in the framework of MURCIR, and Wednesday Talks are one of the most prominent activities in our research center. And today we have a very prominent guest speaker from Greece, from our neighbor, Ioannis Kotoulas. Welcome to our event. And Konstantinos Gogos is with us, associate professor from the University of Athens, and he will be discussant in our program. Before going into our discussion, maybe it is important to remind all our guests to follow our activities by subscribing to our YouTube channel and our social media accounts, because we are used to share our events and all the news about our activities through these channels. And as you know, MURCIR is a 30 years old research center, more than 30 years. So we have so many different fields of interest. So I'm sure you will find something very much related with your research activities in our YouTube channel. So today, maybe it is important to introduce our dear guest, Kotoulas, Dr. Kotoulas. He has PhD in history and PhD in geopolitics. And now he is adjunct lecturer in geopolitics at University of Athens and visiting lecturer in Greek studies at Tbilisi State University. And as discussant, we have Professor Konstantinos Gogos. He has degrees from University of Ioannis and also from German universities. He had many guest scholarship positions. Actually, they have very long, let's say, CVs. Maybe it is important to go directly to our discussion about today's topic, geopolitics of modern Greece, and we will have chance to listen their valuable opinions. The floor is yours, dear Ioannis, to listen your nice presentation.
Thank you very much, dear Zuhal. So today I will be speaking about the geopolitics of modern Greece since the foundation of modern Greece in 1830. So, it will be summary in some parts because we are examining almost 200 years. So let's begin. You see the slide, the geophysical map, right? Okay. So let's begin with the geophysical formation of Greece. Greece, as you can see on the map, is a mountainous country with small valleys. That means that you don't have agricultural production a lot. That means that people tend to be poor. The country is poor. And if you notice the geophysical formation, you see a lot of islands and a lot of very indentured coastline. Actually, the Greek coastline, if you extend it, it's almost as big. It's a little less than China's. It's like 15,000 miles. Believe it or not, it's very, very, very long coastline. This means that the Greek population always had a tendency towards sea. And this is both good and bad because you have like a maritime expertise, but you also have emigration patterns. Greeks used to emigrate often, and this was bad for the country, leaving the country. This is why we have a lot of Greeks in the US, in Australia, and Germany. I personally was born in Australia. My parents were migrants back from the, decades when Greece was still poor. So you see this pattern. Now, to conclude with the geophysical map, Greece is located on the southern edge of the Balkans. This is the most strategic spot, let's say. It's better than the hinterland of the Balkans because you have access to the sea. And on the juncture between Europe and Asia and to Africa. So Greece tries to take advantage of its geographical position. We shall see now how Greece tried to fulfill, let's say, its national vision of uniting what it's perceived as the historical Greek space, from ancient times. And we will talk about that. So the things I talked about, because Greece, one point that is very interesting, because Greece is a coastal country, it is connected with the Western sea powers. That means that, its interests tend to coincide with these what we call in geopolitics sea powers. That is Great Britain, countries that can project their power through the seas, United States today. So these two countries, let's say, were the hegemonic power for Greece, the ones that often intervened in Greek politics and Greek foreign policy. And it's interesting that you have this pattern. I like to see macro-historical patterns that, unfold over time. When Greece or forces in Greece try to change their policy and be, let's say, pro-Russian or pro-Soviet later, you have an armed intervention by the Western sea powers. This happened with King Otto, our first king. This happened in World War I when the government wanted neutrality, de facto pro-German, but neutrality. They intervened again. And 1944, when we had the communist movement, they wanted to reorient Greece towards Soviet Union. A third time, we have armed intervention of the British, in landing in Athens. So you see this pattern. It's very easy to land in Greece. So the cultural background. Greece can be described, Turkey has often been described in the same way, as a torn state. This is a term from Samuel Huntington. Huntington speaks of some countries like Russia, Turkey, or Greece as torn states. It means between two directions. Should be more Western? Should we have our own special identity, stuff like that? And this has to do with the Orthodox faith of Greeks, which creates a connection also with Russia, because Russia back in the 18th century, before Greece was free, was the only Orthodox state that was free, and it was seen as a protector. But later, there was some sort of antagonism with Russia in Orthodox networks, and this antagonism is even evident today. You may have heard news about, some tension in Africa with the Patriarchate of Alexandria. The Russians try to set up some of their own structure. There is some sort of tension. Anyway, the historical background. Greece, let's say, has multiple identities, how we view ourselves, or what we sell as a brand name, you could say, of the country. So, of course, the ancient Greece, the cultural capital that is very strong, and this connects you, to the Western core. The Byzantine aspect is now downplayed because, Byzantine Empire has this notion of being a little absolutist, not connected to the West. So we downplay this aspect, but we used to promote this when in the concept of the Megali Idea, great idea, when there were, attempts to go to Constantinople. Anyway, now Greece as a state from 1830, from the foundation up to the defeat in Asia Minor, Greece was a revisionist state, meaning that it wanted to change borders to expand. In the interwar, which for Greece is different than Europe, it's from 1923, Lausanne Treaty, up until the Italian invasion, Greece is a status quo power. It's weak, it's afraid, it doesn't have security guarantees, so it wants to keep things as they are. After the war, there are two regions for which Greece showed interest. That was Northern Epirus, is today in South Albania, this part. There is a Greek minority there, and Cyprus, of course. So this is the first Greek state, 1830. You can see it's up until the region of Lamia. It's a very small state with just the islands that we call Cyclades, this Mykonos, Santorini, these islands. So this was our territorial core, not Crete. We don't have Crete. We don't have Thessaly, the fertile plain. So it's a very small state after the revolution against the Ottoman Empire, very weak, but still this state was very ambitious. So it wanted to expand. There were more Greeks outside the state than living in this state. So, first of all, the first capital of Greece was not Athens, was Aegina, a small island, then Nafplio, a city. Athens became a capital, was like only 4,000 people, but, it became a capital because it had this huge cultural capital, ancient Athens, the glory. So, for 10 years, we had, Greece was run by Bavarians. Our first king was Bavarian. King Otto, he was a decent king. He tried, and I have to say that these 10 years were essential in organizing the country. They set up the University of Athens, was founded by the Bavarians, the whole state structure. So we have this introduction of Western expertise.
Ioannis, can you hear me?
Of the polity towards more democratic, let's say, perceptions. Greece was of.
We had an interruption. That's why I opened my microphone. Sorry. Now we can hear you.
Okay. So Greece was founded as a protectorate. What does that mean? That the existence of Greece was secured, was guaranteed by these three states: Great Britain, France, and Russian Empire. So what does that practically mean? When Greece lost wars to the Ottoman Empire, they intervened to secure Greek, security when things got bad. So this is, sort of diminishing for a state to be a protectorate, but it can be good if you're a weak state. The protectorate status was officially abolished with the Treaty of Sèvres, 1920. Initially you have these three groups. They're not actually parties like political parties, but let's say like social groupings: the English party, the French party, and the Russian party. You can see their characteristics. The Russian party was the most popular, so like tendency in the society, let's say. It was conservative and it was pro-Russian. So for like the first 30 years, let's say, of Greece, Greece is pro-Russian in its foreign policy. It even supports Russia during the Crimean War against the Ottoman Empire. Greece, which you remember the borders, how south and how small was Greece, tried to support, let's say, the hope that Russia would somehow help. But this was a tactical mistake, and this led to King Otto, the first Bavarian king, being pushed away by the British. Also, you have this conflict between Athens and Constantinople, because Athens was very small, the economy was very weak. So there were some Greeks who would say that we should look to Constantinople as a future capital and not Athens. So you have these two different notions. Megali Idea, great idea, was the dominant ideology in Greece up until the defeat in Asia Minor. So this was not just to expand the territory. This was seen like a modernization program. It included everything. Let's restore the glory of ancient Greece. Let's become the most civilized, the most organized nation, stuff like that. It's not to expand the territory. It covered absolutely everything. It was like a doctrine, not official doctrine, but everybody said, let's fulfill this great idea. So you can see that the gradual expansion of Greece. 1864, Greece gets the Ionian Isles in a peaceful way. The British gave them to Greece, some sort of present with the new king. This was important because these islands, Corfu, Zante, Kefalonia, they were under Venetian rule before and then British, so they had this Western influence. They had an advanced bourgeoisie society, so you have these ideas flowing in. Then you have Thessaly. This was taken again with no war after the San Stefano Treaty, after the Ottoman Empire lost to the Russian Empire. It was given to Greece. It was important because there are the largest plains in Greece. It's fertile. I used to grow up there, so this is important for the expansion of Greece. Then during wars, you have expansion with Epirus, Macedonia, and of course the Aegean Isles. And then you get the modern shape of Greece, more or less. In 1920, Western Thrace, before it was under Bulgarian control. And of course, for a brief period, Eastern Thrace, but not Constantinople, Istanbul, and the Smyrna zone, but not Eastern Thrace was under full, let's say, belonged to Greece for 3 years, but the Smyrna zone, as you know, was like a mandate for like 5 years. So you had this balance first. The pro-Russian tendency was really strong, but what happened and it almost disappeared? Russia changed its policy. Russia began by supporting the Orthodox first to undermine the Ottoman Empire. Then it supported the Slavic people to undermine the Austro-Hungarian Empire. But by supporting the Slavic people, it also had contrasting interests with Greece. So Greeks almost overnight, started to view the Russians as rivals. And back at the late 19th century, the main rival of Greece is not so much the Ottoman Empire, rather is Bulgaria, which was seen as a big threat for control of Macedonia. So you have this new king, George I. He was assassinated in Salonika, 1913, but he reigned for 50 years. You see again the expansion of Greece. With Crete, we have the revolt in Crete, and then although Greece lost the war in 1897 to the Ottoman Empire, the intervention of the foreign powers, created an autonomous regime in Crete, and later you have these two Balkan wars. What was the advantage of Greece? It was the only sea power. Serbia did not have a navy, Bulgaria did not have a navy, so what Greece could offer? They could cut off supplies from Anatolia to the European part by controlling the Aegean. That was the contribution, let's say, to the alliance. So everybody against the Ottoman Empire first, Greece, Montenegro, Serbia, Bulgaria, but then you have Bulgaria not satisfied, so everybody goes against Bulgaria. They were also attacked by Romania and Ottoman Empire, so they lose and we have a new status. Here you see the first Balkan War, the Greek movements from Thessaly. There was actually, let's say, they ran to reach Salonika. Who would go first, Greeks or Bulgarians? And this is the second Balkan War. Ottoman Empire also regaining Edirne. And during World War I, we have this great typical characteristic, a negative characteristic of Greece, this division, internal division. We have this national schism, a very intense internal division. Should Greece go to war or not? So there was this faction, let's say the Liberal Party by Venizelos, who is considered like, the national leader in Greece, sort of equivalent to Kemal in history, and the Popular Party, the Conservative Party. So the Liberal Party wanted to go to war, but they were like adventurers, they didn't get any concrete promises. So Venizelos perhaps, for example, said, let's go to Gallipoli, let's take part in the Gallipoli campaign. But there were military officers who said, no, we shouldn't go to Gallipoli because the Turkish forces will win there. It will be a great mistake. And even if we win, they said, the Russians will take advantage, not us. They will take Constantinople. So it's not good for Greece. Anyway, Greece, after this internal division with much hate from both parties against each other, Greece enters the war in 1917. But it does this with a coup, actually, with a coup. In Salonika, the Venizelos forces, they overthrow the government and they join the allies, the French and the British. And then the government is obliged to abdicate, let's say. But this is it's a gamble, but it pays off because Ottoman Empire loses. Greece is suddenly on the winning side with this attempt. You have a third force appearing, the Communist Party, founded in 1919, which, of course, is controlled by Comintern and the Soviet Union. So we have now this new attempt of Greece to expand. And now, how does Greece try to prove its value? It sends first troops to Crimea, an anti-Bolshevik campaign, 1918, 1919. And they fight bravely. While you had desertions by the French or the British, the Greeks, and from Crimea, from Odessa, they come directly to Smyrna in May 1919. So who was the ally of Greece? Just Great Britain. Only the British supported Greece. France changed its policies from 1920, 1921. Italy was a rival because they also occupied the southwest part of Anatolia. And the Russian Empire before the Bolsheviks, or was also a rival. So Greece has only Great Britain, let's say, to counter. This was a popular lithograph map, of the era. This is the fulfillment of the Megali Idea, great idea. And it says right there in Greek, Greece is destined to live and shall live. And this is Venizelos on the top left. So these are the territorial goals of Greece back then. You see control of the Straits, if possible, Constantinople and the Smyrna area. Treaty of Sevres. It seems like the fulfillment of the Greek geopolitical aims. They get a mandate for Smyrna. You have a rivalry with Italy. And as I told you, the Western states are tired from the war. They start to change their policies. The French do not like the Greek presence. The Italians do not like the Greek presence. The Bolsheviks, the Russians, do not like the Greek presence. So Greece tries to impose the will of the treaty by its own. Gradually, it has to expand its control zone to win against the Kemalist forces. So from Smyrna, they go ever deeper. They control Usak, they go Bursa. The second line is Eskise, Hirafion, Karahisar. The troops lose the Battle of Sankaria, and the front collapses totally with one attack in August 1922. The supply lines were too long. The morale had fallen. Some soldiers did not realize why they're fighting so away from the source of the Aegean. And this is the map with the maximum, let's say, advance of Greek troops as they actually try to chase the Turkish forces into, and you see the Italian zone to the south. So this was the end, let's say, of that policy. And here you see the gradual expansion of Greece and the solidification of its territorial form. Interwar. Lausanne Treaty is the bedrock of relations with Turkey even today. It's a successful treaty because it still, stands. And although, today to exchange populations is considered a taboo in international relations, is considered a very harsh measure. But I think that if you look at over time, it was the only solution back then because it stopped conflict between Greece and Turkey and created more homogeneous states. So however harsh it was in the long term, it proved to be a right measure. Because so many refugees come from Anatolia and Thrace to Greece, there is a lot of poverty, there is a lot of tension. These people used to be Venizelos, fans of Venizelos. You remember the one who would materialize the Megali Idea, the great idea, but they got disillusioned. So some of them turned to the communist movement. During the interwar, Greece has very good relations with Turkey. Both countries try to recover from the war, create a new status. 1930, we have the Treaty of Friendship, and both countries try to navigate through this very era of revisionism and instability. 1934, you have the Balkan Pact, Greece, Turkey, Romania, and their target is who? Bulgaria, who is revisionist, both against Turkey and Greece, Italy, who is revisionist against Greece, and Hungary, who is revisionist against Yugoslavia, and the Soviet Union, of course. So they try to create this stability. Both countries, that's interesting, Greece and Turkey had the same policy. Greece was also neutral, declared neutrality, but we got invaded. Otherwise, Greece would also not take part, in World War II for a long period. So this policy was right at the time because the powers were so powerful that were in contrast that the best thing was to keep a low profile. So Greece was invaded by Italy, although tried to be neutral in October 1940. And we fought back. We beat the Italians, but then you had the German invasion in April 1941. Many soldiers flee through Turkey and go to the Middle East. And of course, you have the humanitarian assistance with ships like Kotoulas during the occupation. So now, this is the general framework. Let me check with time. So you have insecurity, revisionist states, Bulgaria, even Yugoslavia was interested for Thessaloniki. Albania was a protectorate actually of Italy. And you had internal threats because you had the communist movement. Then you had this change of policies. Venizelos from 1928 to 1932 is, believe it or not, pro-Italian, pro-Mussolini, because he saw Italy like a hegemonic actor because the British had gone away to a bit. So he said, okay, we have to find a modus vivendi with Italy. But this changed after this period because Italy was too aggressive and too ambitious. And Greece orients itself again towards the British. So you have the Metaxas regime, a dictatorship, which was pro-British and helped to prepare Greece for war. It's true that the Metaxas regime prepared Greece to be ready for the Italian invasion. And in October 28th, it's a national holiday in Greece, one of the two. Italy invaded Greece, but the Greek army manages to fight very bravely and repel the invasion and even liberate, going to modern day Albania. And then you had, of course, the German invasion. This is as you can see, the borders are in the middle, where it says Konica, Erseka, these are the modern borders. But you see how the Greek army came into, pushed back the Italians, went into modern day Albania. And this is where the front held up until the Germans invaded in April 1941 and occupied Greece, mainland Greece, until the end of April. And then you had the Battle of Crete with parachute troopers, Germans falling in at the end of May 1941. So Greece is under triple occupation, not just German, but German, Italian, and Bulgarian. So this is the worst time of Greece. This is a nightmare. This is a very traumatic period in Greece. If you travel to Greece, you will see many villages. They have, monuments. 100 people executed here by Germans, 200 people executed there by Italians or by Bulgarians, so on. A very traumatic experience, which, even played during the recent fiscal crisis. There was a tension with Germany. Oh, the Germans, they come back and stuff like that. So it's interesting to see how the past is living today. You have resistance. Greek forces fight at El Alamein in Egypt, in Rimini. This was the second traumatic experience after the defeat in Asia Minor. So, like the same generation, people who had fought, in the war against Turkey, now they would fight again, and then there would be a third ordeal. So you have these people always fighting, always feeling, insecure. This is the occupation. As you can see, it's mostly occupied by Italy. The Germans kept Athens and some strategic points, and Bulgarians in Western Thrace. So during this is the civil war. So we have two forces, let's say. You have the official Cairo government. The government had fled to Egypt, British-controlled Egypt. And you have the Communist Party, which is pro-Soviet. And they start the fight between themselves even during the occupation. They attack each other. So you have a communist insurgency in the December. Still, the World War II is going on, right? And it's a great debate whether what happened. It seems that this first battle, this was an initiative of the Greek forces, that the USSR did not support this specific. But then, 1946, the USSR, the Cold War has officially started, it supported. And there is in bibliography research that at the same time, as you remember, there is a triple pressure by the Soviets on Greece, Turkey, and Iran. They pressured Turkey with the Straits and the Kars Ardahan. They even, asked for Kars Ardahan. They press to change the status of the Straits. They press Iran with ethnic revolts. So there is a plan by the Soviet Union. The civil war ends in August 49. It's a huge drama with political repercussions active even today in Greece. You have modern day terrorism in Greece, which is somehow inspired by these facts. But the main line, the bottom line, is that Greece was in war for almost a decade. From 1940, invaded by Italy, up until to the end of the Civil War, 10 years of constant fight. So this is the rebels. The rebels used bases, as you can see, in Albania, Yugoslavia, and Bulgaria. So they crossed the borders and they attacked Greece. So Greece took this to the United Nations, newly founded. And United Nations condemned you had, it's illegal. You can have a state, allowing troops to cross the borders and attack another state. So Greece was vindicated by the United Nations for this. Of course, now you have NATO, Greece and Turkey joining in 1952, forming the southeast flank. Greece, at the Paris Peace Conference, asks for Dodecanese, occupied by Italy, taken in 1912 by the Ottoman Empire, by the Italians. And Greece asks also for Northern Epirus, that part of South Albania, and a small security zone from Bulgaria. But it only gets to Dodecanese because the Cold War had started, USSR was powerful, and was against any of this. What does Greece does to prove its worth, let's say, to the Western coalition? It sends troops again to Korea this time. Remember Crimea. So it has to prove, a small state has to prove its value. So the Korean War was the decisive factor that allowed, for the inclusion of both Greece and Turkey, because they didn't want us back then, not Greece, not Turkey. NATO was against the idea of including Greece or Turkey. Then you have, of course, the Cyprus issue, and this changes everything, the relations with Turkey. The struggle of EOKA. There are two solutions. The first is union. Unite, that was the goal of both EOKA and Athens, and for some time of the US, because NATO would expand. And then you have independence. That was some thoughts and the solution that prevailed. And then you have some sort of rift between Athens and Nicosia. And it was advanced also by the British. They wanted to keep their influence, and the Soviets. So now Greece changes its geopolitical focus from the Balkans, Cold War confrontation, fear of the socialist states to the north. It goes to Cyprus and the Mediterranean. Greece becoming a NATO member was the most important security factor for Greece, because never before did Greece have this security guarantee. Officially, Article 5 of NATO, if you get attacked by a non-NATO member, all NATO countries have to help. In 1961, but in 1974, Greece left NATO, the military branch. This was a tactical mistake, but then it's readmitted. Greece connects to 1961 to European communities. At the same period with Turkey, I think, was 1962. Became a member in 1981 and a member of the Eurozone in 2001. So Greece uses its membership in the European Union, of course, to advance its foreign policy. How we do that? You have to remember back in the 80s, only Greece was a member of the European Union. Not even Spain was later, and Portugal. So Greece could veto giving money to Yugoslavia or other Balkan states, and for later. Gradually, you have a more autonomous foreign policy. 1972 relations with China, and during the 80s, Greece has the socialist government by Papandreou, but it's anti-Western due to the situation. The Greeks blamed the US for their stance on the Cyprus issue. So Greece is anti-Western, but this was a tactical mistake because the focus had shifted to Western Asia, Iran, Afghanistan. So this is when Turkey's importance started to rise very exponentially in relation to Greece. So relations between Greece and Turkey, initially there were hopes, 1953, even a new Balkan Pact supported by the US against Soviet Union. But then we have the September events, 1955. We have the clashes in Cyprus. Greece starts to shift its attention from the Balkans to the Aegean, starts to put soldiers on the islands. Then you have the invasion, then you have the crisis over in the Aegean. Greece tries to use its membership in NATO by putting first a veto, but then 1996 we changed our policy because we realized that actually other states did not want Turkey too, so they used Greece like a scapegoat, and they said, okay, now Greece changed its policy. You see, there was, of course, incidents of tension in many issues. I think today there's a period of stability. Officially, Greece recognizes only one difference with Turkey, that is the limitation of its exclusive economic zone and the continental shelf. So it's a coexistence thing. So during the 90s, how am I doing my time? I'm getting there. In 5 minutes will be it's going to be over. Yeah, 90s, Yugoslavia civil war. Yugoslavia disintegrates. Greece supports Serbia. It was the only NATO state to support and European Union nation to support Serbia. A dispute with what is now North Macedonia over the name of Macedonia. It's complicated for us, but we feel it like a theft of history, to put it simply, because Macedonians were ancient Greeks. So our argument was that you can use the geographical name as an ethnic term, as to denote a nation. Anyway, with Albania, there was some tension about the Greek minority and about the influx of migrants. And Greece officially does not recognize Kosovo. Romania, Greece, and Spain are the countries that do not recognize Kosovo. The national goal, let's say, were two national goals of Greek foreign policy. One was to put Cyprus in the European Union, and the second was to become a member of the Eurozone. And this happened in the early the decade of 200. Then you have, of course, the big economic crisis in Greece the previous decade. This was also traumatic because, people lost a lot of money. But now Greece reinvents itself. Before, Greeks would say, oh, we're European, European Union and stuff like that. Now Greece said, no, let's have an independent policy in the Mediterranean. So Greece turns to the Mediterranean, starts having very good relations with Israel, with Egypt, and approaches the US more. And also we have the very interesting parameter of relationship with China. Greece uses its geographical position to advance its relations. And you can see how Piraeus has risen from 17th port in terms of how many ships get there to number 4 in Europe. So Greece tries to use this geography thing, its membership in the European Union, to advance its interests, to be like, let's say, the intermediary with other countries. So this is the One Belt, One Road project of China. You can see how the maritime road is actually through Greece, and the land route is now through Turkey. And I think there are talks to advance it even more through Turkey right now. The northern route through Russia is being more diminished. So I think this is the final slide. Greece has had a very turbulent history, a lot of wars, internal wars, coups, internal division, revisionism from neighbors. Today, Greece is a member of EU and NATO. It focuses now not in the Balkans, not in the Europe, but in the Mediterranean. This is very interesting in how we see ourselves. We see ourselves more as Mediterranean now. Greece has a presence in the Orthodox networks. There's this antagonism with the Russians. And Greece views itself both as a frontier state of the West, but also as a bridge state with the Arabs, with China, with the Balkans. Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you for this very detailed historical explanation. Actually, it's very difficult because we are talking about a very long, let's say, the time period. It was a very difficult job to do that. And you have given us an insight to go on and discuss more, maybe by asking several questions. But
I'll return to a map. I'll put a map on. Yeah.
Okay. Before going to the Q&A session, I want to give the floor to our discussant, Associate Professor Konstantinos Gogos from National Kapodistrian University of Athens.
Yes, from the University of Athens. Yes.
Thank you. I always confuse the name, that's why. Sorry,
no problem.
My mistake.
No, not at all. Thank you very much. Can you hear me well? Okay, thank you very much for this invitation. And I'm glad to be here with you, and both with Professor Zuhal Mertuzuner and with Ioannis Kotoulas and with our audience. Yes, the role of a discussant is a little bit, let's say, strange. I would like to say a few things, maybe complementary, and also put a couple of questions to Ioannis, and then we can continue our discussion. So let me first say the following: that there is. I'm speaking about today's politics in Greece and today's geopolitics, or when I say today, I mean in the last 10 years, 15 years, or even in the last couple of years. So there is always a cloud, an opinion cloud, or somewhere, people talking about the Russian factor. Russia's or Soviet role, and today, of course, in the last years, the role of Russia and Russians in Greek interests, or if there will be an alliance, or if these are two nations that must cooperate and work together. So I just wanted to ask Ioannis just to give this framework, this framework again, because personally I think that Greece, the Greek political system, Greek governments have chosen. So after the World War, the Second World War, and after the Civil War, not to, let's say, come closer to Moscow that time, or in recent times, because Greece was a stable partner in Western alliances, in Western structure. And just I want to comment, but in the meantime, there is maybe sometimes written in the press in Greece that finally the Russians are better, let's say, supporters of the Greek interests or Greek foreign policy. Of course, in the last year, we have the Russia-Ukraine war, and this is another discussion again. But this would be a first question to Ioannis, if he agrees or if he has another, let's say, view on the Russian factor in the last 60, 70 years, which I believe is not, let's say, any strong factor, although there could be small groups, very small groups, that always speak about a positive Russian factor in Greece's politics or Greece foreign policy. Okay, the question is, how influential is the Russian factor or Russian policy in Greece today? And then I will have another question, Ioannis.
Okay, let me get to that. So the pro-Russian current in Greece was always there even before the Greek Revolution. Why? Because both countries are Orthodox. People back then were very religious, so they saw the Russian Empire, let's say, as the force that would liberate Greeks from the Ottomans. This changed, as we saw, because Russia started to support the Slavic people against Greek interests. It is interesting that it resurfaced in a different form as the communist movement. So the communist movement would not be so successful if this Orthodox substratum did not exist in Greece. And there's also a theory that this is the reason that it was also successful in Yugoslavia. You have this cultural factor underlying, the sympathies. And, in Greece, because the church is always popular, it's not like the Catholic Church, it's not like rigid structure. It's down to earth, priests get married, they have kids. So it's intermingled with society. There was never any anti-clericalism, any opposition to the church. It seemed like, so even the communist movement, I have to say, it was like, accommodating the church, even today, the Communist Party. So anyway, the pro-Russian currents when Russia was Soviet, it was limited to the left, let's say, of Greece. After the fall of the Soviet Union, there is an interesting revival of pro-Russian sympathies among the right too, on the basis of anti-Western ideology or religion. The war against with Serbia, for example, united these two tendencies, both the left and the right, the pro-Russian, let's say. And it's also a cultural thing. It's like a rejection sometimes of European Union. I think I view this as more as a cultural aspect of modern Greece, like some sort of protest sometimes against EU modernity. Oh, the European Union wants to impose some things on Greece. So there's also this aspect, and it's not accidental that pro-Russian sympathies are more strong in northern Greece, in our region of Macedonia, because there's also, there are also many Greeks, Pontic Greeks from Pontus region. They have their own distinct identity. Many of them lived in the Soviet Union. So it's also, a way to connect to your own roots. Now, concerning pro-Russia or Russian foreign policy of Greece in the last years, Greece was one of the most friendly, I have to say, states in terms of the population, not the government. If you saw, polls, but this changed gradually as generations change, and it changed especially after the war in Ukraine. We had a lot of Greeks supporting Ukraine, and because there was also, Russia sometimes is too clumsy in diplomatic. They go openly and threaten another country. They're not so, subtle. So this creates reactions in Greece. And of course, as I mentioned, there's this antagonism in Orthodox networks between Greeks and Russia. There are Greeks, the Patriarchate, Constantinople, Jerusalem, Alexandria. All these are Greeks, if you think about it. So Russia cannot understand how this small nation of 11 million people is still somehow dominant in Orthodox networks, while the strong Russia, is not.
Okay, thank you. And just another short question, and then I will listen to other questions. Another short question would be regarding this trend in bilateral agreements. So in the last years, Greece is trying to form bilateral agreements and has done so with some countries. So meaning stronger connection and maybe with intentions to have an even stronger connection or alliance. Okay, do you think, but Greece is still a very, let's say, stable and very stable member of EU and the NATO. Do you think that these bilateral agreements are really, do they really offer, let's say, a window to Greece in terms of security, in terms of economic growth, of energy resources, or the whole structure, you can call it European Union alliance or NATO alliance, is much more dominant? I mean, are these bilateral agreements, are these helpful? Or it is just, okay, something for psychological, let's say, reason to say, okay, Greece has a bilateral agreement with France or stronger connections with Israel or Egypt. They are going to do something together. I mean, how important or how strong is this?
I think we have entered a period where all states, try to be more autonomous, more independent in its foreign policy. Turkey does that for many years. Many European states start to do that. For many years, Greece, just thought itself a member of the EU. So our interests coincided. But after the crisis, we reinvented ourselves. And then we said, okay, let's not listen to everything that the EU says. It's not necessary that we agree on all things. So perhaps, let's be independent in our relations with Israel. with relations with Egypt. So we turn to these countries. And now, for example, with Egypt, we have very good relations, and it pays off in terms of electric connection. That will bring, Egypt with the sun produce a lot of electric energy. So Greece becomes a gateway for energy imports into the whole European Union. With Israel, it's both a security or even a lobby question, to the alliance with the lobby in the US. So it's a multilateral foreign policy. With Turkey, there's a balance. Greece has this balance with Turkey. Sometimes we say that we are the best allies of Turkey in Europe, and sometimes Turkey will not realize that, in the sense that other, states have different policies. So Greece tries to be more independent, and I think it pays off. It's better than, be just a EU member and, just follow the line of EU. And the focus of Greece is in the Mediterranean. It's not in the EU anymore, because you have gas deposits in the Eastern Mediterranean, mostly controlled by Israel and Egypt, mostly. And you have this new discussion. So I think it pays off because the world becomes increasingly multilateral. You have good relations with China. Our relations with Russia, okay, they have worsened, but Russia is getting weaker. So you have this multilateral global landscape, and I think that all states, including Turkey, try to do that, to try to reap what is best from them from all relations.
Thank you. Dear Zuhal, I'm okay for the moment.
Thank you for your nice contributions and your questions. I'm sure we have some questions from the participants. If you have question, please open your microphone and you can ask your questions. I hope there won't be overlapping situation. Do you have any question? Yes, I see Alexander Karapeti. Hi.
Zuhal Hocam. Yeah, hello to everybody.
Hello.
From Kavala, anyway, and especially to my ex-professor Konstantinos from Athens. Anyway, I would like to raise one question, and I will more or less raise the elephant in the room, which is the antagonism between Greece and Turkey in geopolitical terms. From the beginning, as Greece as global maritime power, especially in commercial fleet, and always sideline with powers which advocate the free trade between the seas, means the Anglo-Saxonic powers, has many advantages in geopolitics from a unified space of a small mainland with a large, let's say, controlled area which is given by access to the sea. Between the unified space between the Greek mainland and the dotted island in the Aegean and the Eastern Mediterranean, speaking Cyprus, Crete, and Rhodes, even the Castelloris or the Mace complex. I would like to ask how this maritime geopolitics can coincide with new Turkey's naval activism, and especially the aspiration of Turkey's geopolitics to transform Turkey from a central land power to much more naval power. We have seen, especially under the last Erdogan's government, the last 20 years, much more focus given to the Turkish military navy. We have seen the modernization of the naval power, and especially its focus to become from let's say a littoral navy to open seas, to blue naval power. We have seen Turkey's bases in Gulf, in Africa, and how determined is Turkey to more or less to cut off Greece connection with its, let's say, scattered, isolated islands and Cyprus?
Uh, okay, the maritime aspect of Greece, as you know, is essential. Greeks are very strong in trade maritime activities. It's impressive that a small country like Greece controls 60% of the fleet of European Union. So it's almost, two-thirds are controlled by Greek rich ship owners, and 18% of the world fleets. Greeks are number one, believe it or not, in tankers worldwide. China is second, Greece is number one. So this is impressive. It shows this orientation. Of course, these are not state controlled, but still there is this tendency in the interaction between ship owners and Greece. So Greek interests are very intertwined with freedom of movement in the seas. And Prime Minister Mitsotakis, I think just today, because Greece is now a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council, he talked about this, about the interests of Greece with free movement. This is also connected with movement of goods from, let's say, China to Greek ports, or with relations with Egypt, which controls the Suez Canal. So this is very important for Greek aspect. Now, if you are a land power, typically, states are divided between sea powers and land powers, or can be both. Turkey is thought as a land power, Russia land power, China as a land power. But if you want to become like a regional hegemonic actor, you also have to be a sea power. This was the lesson, let's say, for Germany in World War I or World War II. They had to have you have to have like a presence in the seas. So this is the big, also question even today with China. China has now the biggest navy in the world in terms of ships, even surpassing the Americans. So to become to be a great power, you need to have like a naval presence. Why? Because with the navy you can be present everywhere. Remember the successful intervention of Turkey in Libya, supporting the Western Libya government. This was done with ships, by ships, not even on the ground. It was Turkish ships on offshore of Western Libya with advanced technology and stuff like that. So this aspect that you can go anywhere and project power is very essential. And this, we have to see whether this will evolve into some sort of antagonism between Greece and Turkey. Both countries are upgrading their navies. They have the two strongest navies in the Eastern Mediterranean. Israel does not have a so strong navy. Egypt has one, but also not so strong. So all this pattern, we shall see how it unfolds, but we should see also patterns of cooperation, because the issue is, are there any real, gas deposits that will be used or not, or is it just for geopolitical purposes to project power? We have to see this very interesting pattern between Greece, Turkey, Libya, Egypt, how it will unfold in the future.
Thank you, Alexander Karaperis and Ioannis. Actually, we are coming to the end of our session, but I have a question I need to ask. I see this geopolitical priorities are changing according to time, and it has many dimensions actually when we decide to talk about Turkish geopolitical the thinking. So maybe as you have done, we can create a chronological flow of happenings and trying to explain it from that perspective. But you can do also from another perspective by creating some thematic fields, maybe the identity in geopolitical thinking, or let's say energy in geopolitical, or economic factors in geopolitical relocation, or let's say the consideration of the world. Today, actually, the geopolitics is a matter of discussion from different approaches. First of all, for example, we are talking about environmental degradation and changes. So we start to talk about environmental, let's say the immigration will come very soon. So we should look at the map, world map, because geopolitics is mainly related with the world map and what's happening and how we position ourselves on this, let's say, the world map. So from that perspective, I think there are so many things to discuss related with Greece about the new world, because we know that Americans are trying to redefine their, let's say, the worldview, and also the other actors. China tries to redefine this worldview. If you close the sharing, Ioannis, I want
Yes,
to show
sure.
something very interesting, maybe for all of us. Where is it? For example, we are talking about this map in our days, global East, global West, global South, or we are talking about this map, and it is also America's war on terrorism and aggressive new strategy. And here you can see again a kind of geopolitical consideration was existing on the base of terrorism. And again, you can have some other things like this one. This is again a world map, and it is considering on this choke points, and Bosphorus is one of them, and also Suez Channel is one of them. So we can see this, the let's say, very important places for the next decades, and we must control all these points. So here I can see that is very important to underline Greece maritime position. It was always a matter. So Greece is a maritime state, and this is the main character, I think, according when we look at all these explanations what you explained. And also you can see the importance of the great sea powers in this geography, and their policies, what kind of policies they are following became very influential in domestic and foreign affairs of Greece. And also maybe we need to refer the other, let's say, the factors like the neighboring, let's say, the actors, not only Turkey, because you are now a guest speaker in a Turkish institution. We had chance to talk more about Greek-Turkish relations, but actually Italy, or let's say, as you prefer to refer in your historical explanation of these happenings, Germany and other happenings coming from the north is also important. And you referred identity factor. I think this must be also considered very important identity factor to refer this, how we call now, I forget the word, the people living outside of the diaspora. Diaspora is also a very important factor in this identity geopolitics, because especially the Black Sea, as you mentioned, we were talking about Mariupol, or we were talking about other groups existing everywhere. So this is also very critical to refer what I listen you and what I know actually. This is also another interesting map showing this changing geopolitical discussion in world. So here we can see Turkey and Greece on the same side. So Greece and Turkey, and when you look at this map, the Syria is inside the area of influence of, let's say, the West. So I think in the next decades, we will see much more interaction, most probably around this cooperation, according to some experts, but some other experts think that can change very dramatically. As you can see on the left side of our screen, we see US versus China, and it can change very dramatically. And it shows that the small map shows that Greece and Turkey will stay under more influence of China, as you mentioned, the rising Chinese influence there. So actually, we have so many things to discuss about the geopolitical transformation of the world and how it may change. Maybe in your further studies, it can be interesting to refer all of them more, because it's a very, very big, let's say, topic. So thanks for your very valuable contribution. It was nice to be together with all our guests. Maybe as a last word, maybe some of our guests want to ask maybe one more question, and then we should, yeah, okay. There is no more question. Thanks for your attendance being here with us today in this nice sunny day, and hope to see you again in another event. Dear Konstantinos Gogos and Ioannis Kotoulas, it was a pleasure to host you and to be together again in the next, let's say, the further event, hopefully. Have a nice
Thank you.
day.
Thank you very much. Greetings.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Goodbye, everybody.